Feel like bebopping after listening to all that music. Hello there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Full-Time Investor. I am your host, Mandy Brenham, aka the Joint Venture Queen, aka the full-time investor that sits here every week and tells you what it's like to be a full-time investor, what it takes to be a full-time investor, why you want to invest with a full-time investor, what the benefits of real estate are, why I've gotten into this game, and why you should be listening to this show. So thanks for joining me here today. Again, please share some feedback. If you have topics or questions that you'd like me to cover on this show, I'm happy to be able to do that for you. So instead of you always asking me questions, I have compiled a bunch of questions called frequently asked questions that people ask me about joint ventures in real estate. And what is a joint venture? Is it legal? What's going on? So I, today on my show, am going to cover the frequently asked questions of joint ventures. I recently went on a trip to Montreal with a fellow investor, Lori May. Shout out to Lori. What a great trip, great connections to many different investors. And from that trip, I took away a lot of feedback from what people are saying, what people are asking, and that's what compiled my topic for today's show. I've got slides on this as well. So if you would like access to the slides that I created for the presentation that I shared with my group in Montreal, I'm happy to be able to share that with you. Leave me some feedback, put a message at the bottom of the chat box, send me an email, go to my website and just say, hey, episode 5, I watched your show. I'd love the content that you shared, and I'm happy to be able to do that. So let me get right into this. Top questions that people, that passive investors ask me about why they would do a joint venture. Okay, what are some of their concerns? What are some of their fears? What are they thinking when they say, what is this joint venture stuff? And why would I enter into a joint venture? Okay, so the first question I get is, why would I give away some of my equity? Why would I give away equity to a partner for in a joint venture situation? So question 1, why would I give away equity? And my answer to that is because, this is like a Wayne Gretzky quote, because 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. What a working expert does is bring opportunities to people who don't have, who are very busy with their lives outside of real estate. My passive partners are savvy. They're smart investors. That does not mean that they have to be the full-time investor. They understand the value of partnerships. And so they look to me to say, you do what you do, Mandy, and you love to frickin' do it. And I'll do what I do because I love to do it, but I understand the value of partnership. And I know that the deals that you bring to the table are more and better than the deals that I could do myself. Okay, so why would you give up half of the equity? Because half of the equity in a deal for me is more than what somebody could find on their own with all the time that's invested. So I look at my portion of equity as a huge investment for somebody else. So they're still getting a really good return at only half of the equity. Question number 2, frequently asked question number 2, is a joint venture legal? And the answer is yes, it is. It's taught by numerous different groups, Canadian groups. Rain Canada teaches joint ventures. Keyspire teaches joint ventures. Rockstar Real Estate teaches joint ventures. Joint ventures are legal. Now, there's this gray area, though, okay, that the banks kind of want to know, well, who has a vested interest? And so I still at this time tell you to get guidance and seek advice from your lawyer and your accountant to make sure that how you structure a joint venture is best and in a comfortable gray area or non-gray area for you personally. Okay, so still seek some guidance and advice, but a joint venture is legal. I tell people that I'm a glorified property manager. I do a heck of a lot of work for my partner. Yes, they go on title. Yes, they qualify for the mortgage, and we have an agreement that says that together we will oversee this property for the next 5 years for the benefit of some shared equity. Okay, so it's definitely legal. How long does a joint venture last? That's my next question. Question 3, how long does a joint venture last? I structure my joint ventures to follow the term of the mortgage. So if we right now are looking at 5-year terms for our joint venture agreements, so we structure or we look at 5-year terms for our mortgage, fixed 5-year terms. That's what we're going to look at for a joint venture agreement. At the end of that joint venture agreement, the end of the 5 years, the term of the mortgages come up, and we have a conversation to be able to say, well, the joint venture agreement said we're here for 5 years. Where are you in life? Where am I in life? Are you close to retirement? Are you wanting to retire? Do you want to sell the property? Do I want to buy you out? Do you want to buy me out? Do we just want to sell it on the open market? What does that look like? If we say, hey, we're both really happy, we like the flow of this property, we don't need to refinance, we can just run it as is. If we choose to refinance because the value of the asset has gone up, then we're certainly able to refinance, and then the term of a new joint venture would go for the next term of the mortgage, whatever the two parties agree upon. Okay, so the term of the joint, but I also have a joint venture that's only 3 years because we chose a 3-year joint venture or 3-year mortgage term. Actually, I have a few of these that are 3 years, and they're coming up for renewal a little quicker. And my one partner was able to get back all of their money upon the refinance in 3 years, and we split some equity, and we're happy to be able to put ourselves into a 5-year term. Hey, Kennedy, how are you today? Calgary, thank you. Question number 4 of frequently asked questions that passive investors will ask me about being a working joint venture expert is, what if I want out early? Great question. And I think people sometimes get concerned that they're locking themselves into an investment and there's no exit options. I always say to people, there's always options. Some are a little bit more comfortable than others, but you always have options. And so for a joint venture, let's just say that somebody were into a 5-year term and they need to retire early. They want to get their money out early. They're done. They're going through a divorce. Maybe a spouse passed away, a change of life. Well, we come back to the table, we go to the joint venture agreement, and we say, what happens if somebody wants out early? And again, we're having those conversations. Do you want to buy me out? Can I buy you out? Can we sell it on the open market? Does it make sense? Can we refinance it? What are your real problems as to why you want out? And maybe we can come up with a solution that selling the property does not necessarily mean that that's the option that we have to go with. Side note here, I was, you just never know what skills are going to come into your life and add to the value of you as an investor. I was a Lelesh League coach or facilitator, and Lelesh League is a mother-to-mother breastfeeding support group. And you're like, Mandy, stay on target here. Let me get to the point. A mom would call me with a problem, and what we were taught is that the issue that they're really calling about is not the underlying issue that they're really asking about. And so I take that same skill base that I had from those conversations, and I bring it back to if an investor says they need out, boom, that's the question that they're asking. I'm going to ask them a couple more questions to dig down as to why. And it might be something as if they're just looking for reassurance. Maybe they went to a dinner party with some naysayers of real estate who perceive the bubble's going to burst, and they get all concerned about their capital that they have invested in you. And they lead with the question of, I think I'd like out early. And you realize that it's just these naysayers. And so we just have to remind people, put our investor hats back on, and refilter the world as to why our investment is secure. So maybe somebody doesn't really want out early, more than they just need some more reassurance as to why why this specific investment that we have together is a valuable one for them to keep in their portfolio. Okay. Question number 5. Who pays for the capital gains? I just got this after an exclusive deal offering. I had an investor respond and ask me about the capital gains. And I think it's a great question. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. And so, but I take this and I share with you in Mandy's verbiage of how we deal with the capital gains. So the income from the property. So let's just say we've owned the property for 5 years. Okay. And we decide as a partnership that we're going to sell the property. And so as we sell, there's going to be some tax to pay because of the income that we make. But for the previous 5 years, we have reported to the CRA that we have owned this property, percentage of ownership 50%. Okay. So the CRA grasped that property at ABC Main Street has been owned by Mandy and her joint venture partner for 5 years in a percentage of ownership 50%. Okay. So when it comes to the selling of the asset, we're going to do the same thing. We're both going to put on there that we sold the property. Here's the amount of gain, but your percentage of ownership is still 50%. You will pay tax on your portion of the gain at your tax rate. I will pay capital gains tax for 50% of the gain based on my tax rate. Now I'm saying that generally as to we are going to have the same amount of gain that we're going to be recording, but you might have yours held in a corporation. I might have mine held personally. And so your corporate tax percentage might be less. You might actually pay less tax on your half of the gain than I would if I had it in my personal name. And vice versa. If you're a high earner making $250,000 plus a year and you've got a gain, well, then you're going to pay a larger percentage of tax than mine, who might be in my corporation. Okay. But who pays the capital gains? The same way that we've recorded the income and expenses and profit along the term of the joint venture is how we distribute the gain, the tax for the gain at the end. And any more further clarification questions on that? If my accountant were to be listening today, she'd probably be like, "Oh, Mandy, like that's not quite her words," but it's a rough enough idea that I want you to understand that one partner is not left with the gain and the other one not. Okay, so they're split the same way that the equity is split. Question number 6. Why is the working partner, Mandy, not on title? Okay. Right now, there are limitations of financing. Like I did a Facebook Live. If you guys are part of on my Facebook, Mandy Brenham, I've got Solutions Driven Property Group, and I put out some great content on there. And this week I did a Facebook Live on 2019 and mortgages. The people winning, I say winning, but people getting ahead in the real estate game are not the ones that find the properties in 2019. The people who are getting ahead portfolio wise in 2019 are the ones that can get the financing and maneuver what the underwriters want. And they want more and they want more. And it's the ones that persevere and push through that are getting financing. So in this strict world of financing, it does not help for me to have me on title with you. Hey, Elizabeth, how are you? No, it's not. This show will be recorded, and you will be able to watch this show afterwards from my Facebook page. And we also upload it to our YouTube channel. And so we're happy to be able to have this show on various different platforms. So you'll be able to see this recording afterwards. Thanks for being here live. And but yeah, so back to my question. Why is the working partner not on title? Because I actually hinder the process in a residential mortgage. Okay, pretty high level here. I like to stay within the residential financing world, which is 4 units and under. Now, side note, there are a couple institutions that will lend 5 and 6 unit properties as residential. And that's part of working with me. We can get really strategic with where we go for financing. But generalized, it's quite easy to get financing for 2 to 4 units, or single families, duplexes, single family conversions, triplexes, or triplexes, as they say in Montreal, or quads in other provinces. So once we have the units figured out, then we go and we get the financing. I don't help to go on to residential financing. I've already qualified for enough. It doesn't help us get the next property by me going on title. And so it's actually more protection for the financial partner, for my financial partners, to be the only ones on title, right? They're touching the asset. They're the ones that know that if anything goes wrong here, my name is on title and I have ownership of this asset, okay? So that's why the working partner typically doesn't go on title. What if the working partner walks away? That's question number 7. What if the working partner walks away? Great question. Great question. And is it a risk? Yes, it's a risk. It's if you're not sure that you're working with somebody who's not vested in the property, and when the times get tough, they walk away, then, the risk, the frequently asked question is, if the working partner walks away, what happens? Well, you own an asset. You own an asset that you now have to be able to pick up the pieces from the working partner, wherever the working partner went, took the property, and away you go. So is it a risk? Yeah, it's not a bad risk. It's make sure you do your due diligence on who you're working with first, so that when times get tough, your working partner doesn't fly away, because you want to make sure that they're there for the long haul. And so you ask a lot of questions of your working partner, of your expert partner, or make sure that they're truly vested in this, so that you know that you don't have to worry about them walking away. Okay, but it potentially is a good question to ask. What if asset value drops? Question number 8. Frequently asked questions that passive investors will ask me as they're coming into a joint venture with me. What if asset values drop? Let's talk about it. I always ask very nicely, so I don't assume this answer. How much is a drop that you would be worried about? And then be quiet. Don't assume that your idea of a drop is what your investor's idea of a drop is going to be. Okay, so let's just say that we own an asset. In Hamilton, we've got a single family conversion that we are looking for a partner for, and it's $600,000. Okay, what if the value of the asset drops? Let's say, so we do a transaction, it's a $600,000, and the value of the asset drops. And I say, how much of a drop are you worried about? And they say $50,000. And I was like, okay, $50,000. So the value of the asset would go from 600 down to 550. Okay, and that's where I start. Okay, so if somebody says, well, what if the value of the asset only drops by $10,000? Then you will have to only address that. Okay, so again, I'm sharing how I would answer what if the asset value drops. $50,000 is what this person has indicated is a drop that would scare them. So let's just say that we're 2 years into a 5-year joint venture, and the asset value has gone from 600 to 550. I say, we don't do anything. Well, but the value of the asset has gone down, but that doesn't affect us. We have tenants in place. We're getting income every month. Our expenses haven't changed. We're not at the time to have to refinance, to have to redo a mortgage. And so it's really, I don't want to say it's irrelevant that the value of our asset has dropped, but it's lost potential. Rather than actually hard ass cash that's been lost. Okay. And so I say, we just have to sit here and wait. Okay. We've got strong tenants. We've got income that's being paid every month. The property is fine as is. Let's rehab this conversation again in 5 years. Okay. So let's say that 5 years come in and the value of the asset has gone up a little bit. Maybe it's to 575. but it's not 600 where we had purchased. We have a down payment, but now for the last 5 years, we've had a mortgage pay down. So we're probably pretty even to what we had originally put in to what we had. So we'd lost potential return on investment because the value of the asset had gone down. We're going to have the same conversations. Do you want to sell? Do you want to? So only if you sell are you really going to be, you're only going to find yourself that the value of your asset has gone down. And I know that people in Edmonton and Alberta have felt this, and I hear the stories of it, and I hear 10 years later, the value of the asset is almost where they had purchased it. And so I know these are very common things. So you just want to make sure that you're doing the due diligence at the time of purchase, that you're comfortable to have a long-term buy and hold asset if you need to wait 10 years for the value of your asset to be where it is. Okay. But again, you're making sure, the passive investor is making sure that when they're working with an active working partner, that that person is doing their due diligence, that we're not speculating on a new build purchase that possibly maybe due to appreciation based on the last couple years is going to be worth this. And we buy into a pipe dream of maybes. We're speculating. That's not what we do. So I always address the question very clearly and say that unless we need to sell the property, we just kind of hold on for a little bit, and away we go. Question number 9, how do I get my capital back? So again, in my partnerships, I'm asking my financial partner to bring the qualification for the mortgage, the down payment capital, closing costs, carrying costs to be able to hold the property, and also the renovation costs. So the renovation capital. When do I get my capital back? So for me, depending on the project, but if we do a single family conversion, so we'll buy the property, we'll renovate it to a duplex, and then we will refinance the money. So typically in my joint ventures, in 6 months, you're getting a very large chunk of your capital back, leaving a smaller amount left invested in the asset. That's what it is, just a small amount left invested in the asset, okay? So you still have some capital left invested. In 5 years, if we go to do a refinance, everything's going fine, we'll refinance the asset, and the first capital to get paid back in my joint venture structures is your capital. Okay, so I give all of my partners capital back before I take any equity over and above. Okay, so when do I get my capital back? As soon as we're able to know that the value of the asset has gone up enough to be able to do a refinance, to be able to give it back to you. Typically, if it's if it's a turnkey property, it's going to be 5 years. When we do a refinance in 5 years, you will get your capital back. Okay. My last question for my show today, I hope this has been helpful. I haven't seen anybody else ask me any more questions, so I'm just going to continue on with my top 10 frequently asked questions of joint ventures. Okay, you know what? Now here I'm looking at my questions and I realize that I just answered the last question, number 9 and 10 together. Is how do I get my capital back, and when do I get my capital back? How do I get my capital back is a refinance. When do I get my capital back? We kind of have this unsaid, unwritten description that if the value of the asset goes up by 25% more than what we had last appraised it at, okay, then I am able to pick up the phone to you, do a little happy dance, and be able to say, just to let you know, our asset has gone up in value more than 25% than the last time that we'd refinanced it. And I'm happy to be able to say, why don't we entertain the idea of another appraisal and another refinance? Okay, so there's always that possibility. You know, we bought back in 2016, we bought turnkey properties with the anticipation that my partners were happy for 5 years that their money would have been, tied up in this asset. And I was able to call them up a year and a half later and say, just to tell you that the asset that we bought early 2016, we're able to refinance, pull out all of your capital plus some, and we recycled it onto another 2 assets. Okay, so there's always this, if the value of the asset goes up, it's always a conversation between partners to be able to say, hey, would you like to refinance? Would I like to refinance? Has the value of the asset gone up? Yes, it has. And we collaboratively decide if it's a time for us to be able to release our capital or not. So that's it for my frequently asked questions here today on the Full-Time Investor. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to have another guest next week. We've been massaging out some dates. I'm not going to lead you into anything to be able to put him on the hook, but trust me, you're going to want to tune in for the knowledge and the expertise that I'll be able to share on this show as the Full-Time Investor. Get your snow globe of your brain all shook up in there so that you don't get stuck. Please, people, if you are thinking about getting into real estate and you've been hesitating, please connect. This is a great time in the market for you to be redistributing your wealth and making sure that you have real estate as part of a diversified investment portfolio. I want you to have stocks. I want you to have cash. I want you to have your own personal home with some equity, but I want you to have a piece of real estate that somebody else is paying your mortgage. I would love it to be able to add some more housing units to the shortage of housing that we have in our country today. And if you're looking to be able to do some investing, please just reach out. I'm happy to be able to shoot you these slides to be able to show you what some of the frequently asked questions are and what my response is. So that's it for me today. Mandy Brenham, the joint venture queen, coming to you live from my home studio for another episode of The Full-Time Investor. Thanks for tuning in, guys.